Jumpin In, delivered to your door by the wine cellar, Douglas.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. And here we are yet again, would you believe it is a Saturday night, it's 9 o'clock, it is time for Jumpin' In, the best in modern and contemporary jazz with myself, H and Chris, and something of a special, I believe.
Indeed it is. Welcome along to this week's show, and yes, it's another one of our country specials. As you know, from time to time we like to dedicate the entire show to artists from specific countries, although sometimes their adventures in music have taken them far from their home turf. Of course, we like to report on the festivals too when we can, and while we're looking forward to the London Jazz Festival in a few weeks, one festival we yet to have to add to the list is the Wellington Jazz Festival, and sadly we can't be at the capital's premier jazz event taking place this very weekend, but we can give you a flavour of the music with a selection of many great jazz musicians the country has produced. So, H, what's been saying kia ora to you this week, and what has been giving you new zeal and appreciation for the music? You see what I did there?
Oh yeah, get the juice on the loose. Well, you know, a bit of Maori. We will have possibly the first, I hope not the last, but first on the show, some Maori jazz. Yeah, there's a mix, isn't there? Celebrating the Maori language. Bit of that. Oscar Levine, we heard the other week, really been enjoying that album, so I'm going to play a bit more with another cracking title. His music's good, so are his titles. Ben Wilcox, really in the ear, The River Tethys, great album, that'll be coming back to that. And of course, the great Alan Broadbent.
And from me, well, we yearn, we circle, we scrape, we're moody, and to start, a gathering. Here's Tui from the Jacques. Tui, an award-winning track from an award-winning album. 8-piece ensemble The Jack have been mainstays of the New Zealand jazz scene since 2010, and their album A Gathering won them the coveted Tui Prize in 2021. And coincidentally, that was also the title of the track. Following a highly successful joint project with Korean jazzers Black String, I'll bring you them in a different programme, well worth a listen. The track was inspired by Korean folk music and the colourful bird song of the Tui, the Piwaka Kwa, and the Rire Roro, and the Tuhoa. I'll go there again. The Tui,
go for it.
The Piwaka Kwaka, and the Riro Riro, and the Tuhau, who are regular visitors to the lemon tree outside the studio, they say. If only they had sparrows, that would have made things a great deal easier. The winner of the 2022 award, incidentally, went to Maeli Manzaza, who we'll feature on a future Jumpin' In.
Excellent idea. It is Jumping In, of course, the best in modern and contemporary jazz. Chris and myself, H, and we are celebrating the jazz of New Zealand this evening. We quite often do a little country special, and we've had
it's
some
a big
great
country special, isn't it?
very big country, two islands worth, as they say. Still haven't got there, to be honest with you, but it's on the radar at some stage. And there is, you might not think necessarily of New Zealand and jazz straight away, but clearly there is a burgeoning and active jazz scene, judging by the number of artists who are around, several of whom we've featured on this programme over the years, and several this year, in fact, and so we'll be hearing a few more of them as well. But I thought I'd go back a little bit further to perhaps one of the, I don't know, could you call him one of the granddaddies or one of the older fathers of New Zealand jazz, Alan Broadbent. I think he's now in his 75th year, born in Auckland, New Zealand, known for playing with all sorts of people. You name him, Chet Baker, Sheila Jordan, Natalie Cole, Warren Marsh, Bud Shank. He's played with all of them and many more beyond, and including, for my money, one of his best outings with Charlie Hayden and Quartet West. Hermitage, Pat Metheny track, given a lovely outing there by Charlie Hayden's Quartet West, with, on piano of course, Alan Broadbent. Fine player, as I say, and I went to Berkeley, of course, trained there, and never really looked back. And as far as I'm aware, he's still active on the scene. I assume he's one of the elder statesmen on the New Zealand jazz scene now, along with Mike Knock, still playing, I think, isn't he? I think he is.
Well, funny enough, next from me is Mike Knock. Mike Knock, who is still playing, and I think he just out-godfathers him, a resident of Australia now, but at 82, still producing great music with a couple of new albums with a new group over the last 2 or 3 years. So 2 years ago, he released This World to great acclaim with a quartet of some of Australia's best players. Hamish Stewart on the drums, Julian Wilson on saxes and effects. Julian's a great fan of the show and very kindly sends us a number of releases. And Jonathan Swartz on bass. Now they're back with a new recording, Another Dance. Here's Yearning. Very nice, very moody Yearning from Mike Knock Quartet, recent released Another Dance on saxophonist Julian Wilson's fantastic Lionshare Records. Thanks very much for Julian for sending that and for listening in on the other side of the globe. And should any of our New Zealand friends want to listen in, of course, they can go to the festival in the evening and catch up with Jumpin In over eggs for breakfast the following morning.
The wonders of modern science, isn't it? Yeah. You can listen anywhere you like. Just download the podcast and listen at your leisure. I was suggesting the other day you could, in theory, listen underwater, couldn't you? You can get waterproof headphones now and the waterproof phones. So in theory, you could actually listen to a podcast underwater.
Or in the bath.
Or in the bath, yeah. Other places are available. Celebrating the jazz of New Zealand, and one that came out earlier this year, which we played on the programme once or twice and I really enjoyed, was Ben Wilcock. Thanks to our friend Rob Adam for sending that over as ever. Great with Scottish and New Zealand jazz, our Rob, and we're very grateful to him for keeping us up to date with some of the greatest. Pianist Wilcock has been playing for some time. He started out in New Zealand, headed across to London for some years. Rather like this on his notes. He's saying, I left New Zealand as part of a theatre show called The Pickle King, he says. The company Indian Ink was well established and had won a fringe first at the Edinburgh Fringe, so after touring New Zealand with them, they asked if I wanted to join them for their run at the Edinburgh Fringe in 2003. I not only said yes, I also booked one-way tickets for my wife and myself. He doesn't say what his wife thought about that. I hope he asked her first. With the goal of staying in the UK and pursuing my career in London, which he did for several years, and then returned to New Zealand in 2008 and invited to join a local soul band. Has gone on to play quite a lot, play with all sorts of workshop with Bob Moses as well, and then brought this one out, The River Tethys, inspired by science fiction, in around about August this year. And terrific stuff. Really enjoyed listening to this one. Here's Ben Wilcock with Sol Draconi Septum. Sol Draconi Septum. Ben Wilcox from his River Tethys album, which came out in August of this year. Everything was influenced by Dan Simmons' Hyperion novels. The tracks list features a variety of styles and approaches, which is very much true, including an Irish slip jig, the butterfly, which John Ray taught him. He says, Ben, the original material completely improvised with a few parameters discussed beforehand. He says all the tracks are one takes, so the recording really captures a true collaborative improvisation. Playing with him, of course, bassist Dan Yeardsley, the violinist Tristan Carter, and his partner in the wonderfully named Thick Records, I do like that, Thick Records in Wellington, the Scottish drummer John Ray, Celtic Feet. Remember Celtic Feet? Yeah, I don't know what year he emigrated, but John went out to New Zealand and hasn't come back. He sort of reversed Ben's journey, I think, and is resident now in New Zealand. But they got together when they were in Edinburgh, when Ben was in Edinburgh, and he says John's input is beyond price. He brings so much experience to the band, not just in his playing, but helping in the arrangements. I'd like listeners to feel they're hearing something fresh and innovative. Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. Wonderful stuff. Oh, and for the Sharbeard, by the way, you're quite right. I didn't say who else was on Charlie Hayden, did I? Ernie Watts, Alan Broadbent and Billy Higgins, just before I get told off by someone for not being thorough.
John Ray, still good material coming out from him, both solo and with his trio, and we have played a couple of his more recent releases on the show previously. Next, from me, a track from Ronin Orchestra, not connected with Nick Barch's Ronin, the brainchild of LA-based New Zealand-born keyboardist, DJ and producer Mark de Clive Lowe. He brings together some of the most innovative players on the Japanese scene on this release. Mark's father was a New Zealander and his mother is Japanese, and he never forgets his heritage on either side of the oceans in his music. This from their second release, Sonkai, is Circle of Transmigration. Circle of Transmigration from Mark to Clive Lowe's Ronin Orchestra. Respect to them, and the album is Sonkai, which of course means respect. You're listening to Jumpin' In with the Brothers Jazz, myself Chris, and H&R New Zealand Special. What have you got next?
I'll tell you what I've got next. Over-caffeination on a tiny scooter. Wonderful stuff. It is over-caffeination on a tiny scooter. He's got absolutely got the vibe, I think, going on there with the track titles. Fantastic. We have Jesus and This Plastic Saxophone last week, and yes, this was another of my favourite from his latest album, Questions in Red. Oscar Levine, I think it is, the umlaut over the E, so I'm going for Levine, and sorry Oscar if I've got it wrong. Long been on the Wellington jazz scene, a multi-instrumentalist, lead tenor player in the Roger Fox big band, and has also appeared with John Beasley's Monchestra, who we featured both volumes of the Monchestra back in the day. Must play it again with MD, and an interview with John Beasley as well. The Wellington Mingus Ensemble has also performed throughout Australia, Europe and the US, and that album is due out around about now, actually, 22nd of October.
Yeah, and in fact there's 3 albums, isn't there, for the Monchestra Orchestra, the last one being the Monchestra Plays Beasley. I have featured pianist Jonathan Crayford on the show before with his award-winning New York trio, where he's supported by a terrific rhythm section of Ben Street on bass and Dan Weiss on the drums. From their original album, though, 2014, Dark Light, here's Skyscraper Scaffold.
Jumpin In with the Wine Cellar, stockist of the largest range of wines, beers, spirits and cocktails on the island.
Te hue matati e te wahau tāne i te tangi a hine rau ka tauri i te tangi a hine pū te hue hiri ai te ngākau hine ngaro kia oho ki tō te puorohu ki tō te waiata ko te koe koe ko te kete kete ko te kuku hei huru huru
I did promise you a little bit of Maori. Alana Goldsmith from a new album just out, described as a slow-burning delight. I like this track. It's one of my favourites on the albums because it's a bit more eclectic. Some of them are perhaps a bit more sort of straight ahead with that Maori singing in. This one's got a real feel of nature and, yeah, back to basics. I like it. Singing in the Maori from the album New Zealand duo Goldsmith Baines, the album called Igarere Ra.
And speaking of back to basics, you're still listening to Jumpin In, but that's about it for our New Zealand special. But before we say Harare Ra, we've just got time to squeeze in a track from pianist, synthesist and composer Darren Pickering's debut recording, Small Worlds Volume 1. Here's Moody 7. Don't miss next week's show, by the way, another special with guest Binka Golding.
Indeed it is. We'll see you then. Look after yourselves.
Bye for now.